So, welcome to the What is Life podcast, where we make the uncomfortable comfortable. I'm your host, Zafreen, and thanks for being here. I am joined by one of my good friends, Choi. So,
it is a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we got to do this in person. I like the in-person interviews, Z.
Absolutely. Yes, that is the goal. As many as I can in person.
I love it.
Okay, so for today's topic, we kind of just want to talk about growth being a decision. So let's spin a little bit into that. So how about you share a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and how this topic relates to you.
Hell yeah. My name is Choi. I am an entrepreneur, content creator, and an athlete. I am formerly a college football player that kind of turned a lot of my soft skills and life skills from sport and kind of turned that into a business / like my career in that sense. And I am raised by a single mom. I have an older brother. So I think just being an immigrant is a big part of my story. And I think a lot of the things I've learned through sport and life have now translated into who I am today. And I think the way you grow up says a lot about who you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thanks so much for sharing that. And then, so this whole topic about growth being a decision.
Yes, I love it.
So where should we dive into it? Like, do we want to just say kind of, how about when you think of growth, what is it that comes to mind? And it being a decision, right? Like an active consciousness and not just something that happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think how I think of it is, it's what's the alternative?
Yeah.
Right? Because I think as humans, like every single day there's change happening, and sometimes that change can turn into maybe more money or a bigger house or a better job. But there's little nuances of what I believe growth is that happen to our day-to-day life, whether it's a routine or a habit or picking up a new skill set. And when I think about growth as a decision, I think it's something that is intentional with each human. Change happens no matter what humans care about, right? Technology, it's the only constant. Technology is going to change everything of that sort. It's out of our control as humans. But when you think about growth, I think there's things that we can control as humans, and sometimes it's just a framework of how we think about it. And I think growth is subjective to each person. Like, it's going to look different. It's going to be different for every human. But if you can actually understand that you're in control of your growth, then that is the biggest takeaway for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's something that really sticks with me to this day, because I see growth as sometimes a necessity to just get out of an unhealthy situation.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the only way that you can just move through, really, and I just find that, excuse me, if you're not willing to, and that only happens when you've made that acceptance, right? Like, you can make excuses left and right. And like, for example, if you're, saying like, oh, I'm not, I need a new job, but these are the best benefits I'm going to have, yet I'm still unhappy. And so it's like, at that point, where are you stifling yourself? Because you aren't ready to accept that you need to grow to be able to get out of that situation to where you can be where you want to be.
Yeah. And I mean, humans are in control of their happiness.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you think about it even in that sense, like, it's our job to find out what makes us happy as humans. It's
Absolutely.
Like 100% your responsibility. The government's not going to change that. Your parents aren't going to change that. Yeah. And until humans take responsibility for their lives and to choose happiness or to choose growth, like, it ultimately is on you. Yeah. And if you don't want to do it, the easy option is stay at the job. Yeah. Stay in the relationship. 100%. It's comfortable. Yeah. If you don't want to grow, then what's the alternative once again, right? Yeah. So it's for me, it's black and white.
Yeah.
You either want to grow or you want to stay the same. And if you want to grow, then you're going to go through discomfort. You're going to do uncomfortable things. You're going to find ways to change that framework in your mind. And sometimes it's for people, it's just having the awareness that they even want to do it.
Yeah.
And then you can start small, whether it's meditating for 5 minutes, reading 1 page a day, taking a cold shower for 10 seconds. These are small things that, just like investing, if you compound your interest, if you do something every single day for 30 days, even if it's the most minute thing, watch what happens in those 31st day.
Yeah.
And I think that's how I perceive growth. I think everyone wants the 60-day program to grow your glutes, the 90-day program to grow your social media, 30-day program of abs, and it's all BS.
Yeah.
Nothing worth having in life comes easy, And if you can actually understand that framework, you'll be a lot more patient in the growth that you want in life.
Yeah. And I think what you're sharing makes me even think about why people want to grow in general, right? Like, I feel like sometimes the two are misconstrued, where people think growth and growth and happiness are not synonymous. And what I mean by that is, when they think of growth, they're thinking of, like, what am I trying to say here? So, like, when you're thinking of growth, I'm just imagining some, like, people that I know and how they're just, like, growing versus being successful is different. And, like, in my mind, success, and I know this is, this can be very polarizing. Success to me means being fulfilled and happy. Mm-hmm. Whereas, like, for some people, success is monetary value, which is totally fine.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's like, in my opinion, in order for you to get there, you have to grow, regardless of whether you have a positive or negative situation, healthy, unhealthy, toxic, whatever. And a lot of people, I feel like, don't realize the two are the same. Even manifesting, right? Like, they think manifesting is something that's like frou-frou, and they're just like, oh, that's not a real thing. Like, you can't speak these things into existence. And It's like, no, you put in that work, you put in that 1 page a day, that 30 minutes a day, whatever, and you'll see that over time you'll get to where you need to. And there's going to be growing pains along the way. Like, there's going to be fumbles, there's going to be staggering, and that's all part of the process.
If people can actually create a better relationship with, like, what comfort looks like for them, I think that's a great starting point. Because I think, for me, whenever I'm on pods or something like this, it's like, what can a listener really take away from this conversation to then say, how can I apply this in my life?
Yeah.
And I think by getting more comfortable with this uncomfort or things that are out of your norm, it's by far the first step to getting growth in your life.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think if you can start there at that foundational point, like, watch what happens from there.
Yeah.
When you think about manifestation, like speaking things into existence, and there's when The Secret came out, the law of attraction got kind of shit on because everyone's like, oh my god, like, I'm just gonna tell myself I'm a millionaire. But yes, manifestation works when you also put things into action.
Absolutely.
Your words need to match your ambition and the things that you do. So if you say you want to be a millionaire, you can't just say it for it to happen. You have to also speak it, but do the things behind it to get you to that point. And I think that piece, which is the piece that's not the sexy part, doing the work, living in the trenches, the sacrifice, the humility is the shit. No one wants to do that shit.
Yeah.
Because it's all about delayed gratification.
Yeah.
How do you actually put in the work to build out the foundation, just like a house? If you're building a house and you don't have a strong foundation, at some point when weather hits and adversity hits, it's gonna fold like a cheap chair.
Yeah.
And I think that's how I perceive growth. It's like, of course we want the final destination.
Oh yeah.
But the fun part actually is the journey through it all. The little micro wins and micro L's that people go through on life.
Yeah.
I think that's actually where the joy is. But most people just want the $1 million in the bank account or the big house or the successful relationship. And the people and just like you and Jordan, I'm sure you guys have had so many trials and tribulations along your journey of marriage and growth just as humans. And that's actually what the beautiful part of life is. Because if everyone had the answers, if everyone's growth was linear, it would be boring as shit.
Yeah.
There's a reason movies that have a lot of suspense and thrillers in it are some of the best movies people want to watch. If you just watch a movie that this person just like, he starts from this point and somehow only sees success and gets lucky, like, those movies and stories are not as fun to consume.
Yeah. And so this is where I'm going to throw a little wrench in it. And yes, I know you said that you see growth as being black or white, right? Like, there's only one or two ways that you can go about it. Now, this is where I'm going to tie in the piece of why this podcast and these topics are so important to me and why I want to be able to offer a space for others to see that they are being seen and heard, and that cultural aspect that comes in, where they're feeling that pull sometimes of wanting to grow, but then feeling like they're tethered to their upbringing in some way, whether that is culture, religion, society as a whole. And for you, what helped you to kind of get to where you are? What was your aha moment where you realized, like, I'm going to make a change for myself because what is current is not working?
Yeah. I think what first happened was changing my environment.
Yeah.
And that's like the best piece of advice I can give anyone is, if you feel like you are surrounded by negativity, by cynicism, by societal norms, change what you're listening to.
Yeah.
And it could be as hard, Z, as like getting out of your parents' house. If your parents are preaching you their religion or something that you might not believe, then stop listening, but you have to put yourself in an environment that you can go and wander off on your own path.
Yeah.
And that could be the same with friends. It could be the same with your community, siblings. Yeah. Sometimes the people closest to you are giving you the most negative feedback.
Yeah.
So the first thing for me was changing what I was consuming.
Yeah.
And it started with like, all right, well, like, I'm not going to watch as much football. I'm not going to watch as much of these leisure escapism activities.
Yeah.
And I'm going to spend time on personal development and self-help. And that looks like a lot of different formats, whether it's a finance thing, a intellectual mindset thing, and like how you see the world. But above all of that, Z, I think the biggest thing for me was like getting out of the high school mentality. In high school, everyone's worried about like, oh my God, like my crush, or I'm not part of the cool clique.
Yeah.
And I think as you get out of high school mentality and stop trying to impress people that you don't even like, that is by far the biggest change for me mentally.
Yeah.
And once I changed that, it got super easy to not hear the hate or the criticism from high school friends.
Yeah.
Or even college friends.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like, we all have one life to live.
Absolutely.
And if you're gonna live your life based on what others or your parents or random strangers on social media, it's just not a good strategy. And I think people should be the judge and jury of their lives. And then you have the few people that are really close to you that you respect their feedback and opinion, and you can always use them as sounding boards. I have so many people in my life that are sounding boards, but I don't base my opinion and how I justify my life based on what they say. I take that feedback and let it marinate in my own mind, and then let myself take that decision. And I think that's for most people is get out of the high school mentality.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
So, I mean, what you just shared really resonates with me, and like a piece of one, you don't have to be alone to do this.
For sure.
Right? Like, it's absolutely scary, like the fear of the unknown, like jumping into something that you're just not familiar with, right? Like losing your safety net in many ways. And, you know, same thing of like a lot of times for me, for example, when I go to peers for any advice or support or whatever, a lot of times I just want to be heard. I don't want a solution because I know it needs to get done. I just need to get it out of my head and to know that it's like, okay, like I just have too much going on. Like I want to just have somebody as a sounding board and let me know if I sound totally ridiculous. And like, I welcome that constructive feedback, right? Like if something is totally left field, let me know and be like, oh, maybe there's a better way you can do this. And that has helped me immensely. And for me, one thing that for when I decided to grow is there was a moment where, I mean, there's many moments, but the one that sticks in my mind immediately is when I found myself struggling to continue to support and be the foundation and rock for my family, and at the same time walk the line of what I wanted to achieve for myself. And I found that when I kept trying to help them, when I would distance myself, I then got sucked back into everything. And as a result, I wasn't moving in the direction I wanted to, or I just kept regressing. And I was like, there has to be a point in time where this is not okay anymore. And it sucked because I had to make a conscious decision of like, this whole piece of, you know, growing up to always respect your elders, is not be your family and whatever. And I felt and I had to grieve that in many ways. And that's something that even to this day, my family still doesn't understand because it's a topic that we don't talk about at all. And for me, I was able to get to where I am now. I have a house. I have, you know, a wonderful family. I've got 2 amazing dogs. You know, I've got a job that I really love. And I was able to do all that by 26, 27, because I put myself first and I decided that my growth was going to need to be prioritized. And I know for a lot of people that's really hard, and it's not as easy, and I make it sound easy, and it wasn't by any means. I'm still figuring it out. I stumbled along the way in many ways, but I'm very appreciative of everything that I did to get to where I am.
I love that. I think, you know, what I think about when you say that is understanding the balance between being selfish and selfless. And that's a balance for most people, Z, that I think that a lot of times if you seek outside validation, you're going to be a lot more selfless with your time and how you respect yourself. And this could be as simple as like taking care of this one thing that we have as humans, is your body and your health.
Yeah.
Taking care of your health is a great sign of self-love. But not everyone does that, especially in America. If you have 60% of the world that's obese, right?
Yeah.
But the ability to be selfish with your time, and even if it's outside of the fitness space, think about your story. Like taking time where you're like, damn, I can't fix everyone else's problem if I can't fix my own. For a lot of people, self-love, if you really want to love other people and give good energy and be your best version of yourself, you have to show up for yourself first.
Absolutely.
And I think that twist where it's like self-love should not be so selfish in today's society.
100%.
Nowadays where it's like, when I don't want to drink, people are like, why aren't you drinking? Why aren't you this? Or if I don't want to go out, right? And it's so weird how these things have gotten so normalized in Western culture of like, oh my God, escaping your job. Why aren't you going to happy hour? Why aren't you doing this, right?
Yeah.
And people even look at me because like, they think my only form of self-love is working out and doing all that shit that I do because I put it on social media.
Sure.
But even saying no to things is a form of self-love.
Yeah.
And I think for more humans to understand that on the other end of this pod, like saying no to like going out on that girls trip or just making time for yourself.
Yeah.
So many people put others first and don't take time to put themselves first. And then they wonder why, like, oh shit, I'm in the same place. Or why do I have to go to all these events to feel like I'm fulfilled? Because they're not fulfilled with their own self. And it's like that same saying. It's like you can't love someone if you don't love yourself. You can't if you're on the airplane, when the masks drop, you can't help anyone else if you don't have your first mask on first, right?
Absolutely.
And that's why they tell you, put your mask on before you help the person next to you. And I think the same thing applies in life. Like, you have to have your cup full before you pour your water into anyone else's shit.
Absolutely. And it's funny because I realized, and it wasn't until after the fact, that I was doing something right in, putting myself first, that I found myself in situations that used to be stressful be more at peace, or I was able to actually rationally handle them.
I love that.
And that's when seriously, and that's when I was like, all right, shit, maybe I'm doing something right, and it sucks because that's like a hard pill for so many people to swallow, that, and I know it's such a cliche saying, but it's like, I just know so many people that they're just battling themselves, their identity, their peer, like not even just their peers, like really like whoever they see as their support unit or their family unit, whoever it is that, their loved ones in general. And for them to be selfless in that way, like you said, it's the conflation of selflessness and selfishness. And I think for myself as an empath, I always want to help others, and it's always at the expense of myself. And it was when I started doing the opposite that I was an even better version of myself for others.
It's a beautiful thing.
It really
You
is.
could bring a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
And it gets frustrating when you're in a framework of like, you love these people, you want to help them.
Yeah.
But sometimes the best help is listening.
Yeah.
And like, see, for me too, like with whether it's my brother, other friends that like I've gotten into big arguments about because I try to push my ambition onto other people.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I had to take a step back and realize that like, that wasn't the best form of communicating the love and passion I had for these people.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I can't want it. You can't want it more
Yeah.
for these people than they want it for themselves.
Absolutely.
So all you can do is, one, be a sounding board and be someone that can listen when they want to vent and spill their beans or shit that they're talking on.
Yeah.
But that is something that for most people, like, it's stop trying to change the world. Just change yourself first and let that be the first domino to drop, to then let other people come and ask for your help or seek it in that sense.
Absolutely. And actually what you just shared is another piece of this. It's a very complex layered onion here.
Onions are complex.
They really are.
That's why you tear up when you cut them.
Indeed.
Sometimes.
I mean, hey, you're going through something clearly. So that's the other piece, right? Of this whole idea of growth as a decision. We've been talking about it in relation to ourselves. But the other side of it, for other people, right? And what you talked about with like, your brother and like other people, and that if we want our family to change, or if there's someone in our life that we just want the best for them, and we keep, just like hitting our head against the wall because nothing is changing, it's because that person's just not ready.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I see it with my own family in that there are certain individuals where it's like, I know what they need to do, and I just can't force them to make the change. And so it's like, I have to be there, and unfortunately you have to watch it through a little bit.
Yeah.
And at the same time, like, they'll be ready when they're ready. Like, it takes time. Like, for example, like, I mean, just in particular talking about my mom, I mean, so in relation to my mom in my relationship with Jordan, we are almost 12 years now together. And that is something that it has taken time for my mom. Once I was mentally ready to deal with all the
backlash.
Yes, all the backlash was going to come from me just saying, this is my life, I'm standing on it. You either accept it or you don't. I still love you, and at the same time, I want you to love me and support me. That was something, because at the end of the day, we just want to feel protected by our parents, right? Or whoever it is that takes care of us. And that was something that, I mean, over time, yes, we would clash, but I would still stick to to my boundaries. And eventually, over time, like you just, like a wave to like a cliff, like you just keeps hitting it and eventually just chips away. And we're at a place now that I never thought we would be.
Yeah.
Ever. And it was absolutely terrifying because I married somebody that, and I know this is going to sound like a broken record to everybody, but somebody that is outside of my culture, outside of my religion. You know, it's completely just left field. I mean, it's more heard of now, but I mean, like, for me being the only girl in my family,
it was a shock.
Oh my God, like, I was the martyr for my family, essentially, where they were just like, of course the guys were doing it, but that's different. Like, being a female, I mean, there's a whole other level of just pressure that exists there and societal expectations. And for me to be like, yeah, screw that, I'm going to choose myself. I mean...
It takes guts.
And here we are.
But at the end of the day, like, you need to protect your happiness.
Absolutely.
And for humans, like, that's actually the answer. To even Z's point, 12 years ago, she couldn't imagine how good their relationship is now. And I think that's actually the punchline for anyone listening to this. Whatever you might be going through and, like, the struggles of making this decision to change and to grow, the other side is beautiful.
Yeah.
And, like, it's worth it. And if you actually can understand that, I'm seriously, like, on some real shit, like, if you can actually contextualize that it's gonna be so much better on the other side because you're living on your terms.
Yeah.
And so many people live based on other people's terms or societal terms, and it's just a losing strategy.
Absolutely, yeah. I think a lot of people, one thing I want people to take away is that you are 100% in control of your narrative, regardless of what people tell you. At the end of the day, it's you and yourself that goes to bed. And that is something that I hope people can start to realize and internalize a little bit more, because once I started really taking that in, I realized, like, when I would hear whispers or rumors of something some family member said about me or somebody else, I was like, I know that's not true, and I'm not going to feed into it. Yeah. It's about me, myself, and I. And you can watch me succeed while you stay stagnant. So, I mean, that's just something that... Anyways, I could talk about that forever. It's fine. I will not go into that for another episode.
I love it.
But it's just one of those things, right? Like, and not only that, like, everyone's journey is so different. I mean, even just, like, us sharing our lived experiences. I mean, like... We have gotten to where we are because of the decisions we consciously made, and they're so different, yet there's so many parallels.
So many.
And I hope people can hear that and take something away from that, because I just want people to realize that it's going to be okay. And yeah, I mean, everyone deserves to find peace, and that's different for everybody. So figure out what your journey is, what that looks like. It's okay to stumble. Find out what growth means to you.
1000%. It's different for everyone, and just like most things in life, like, once again, like, this, like, a lot of my content too nowadays is, like, people see it as running content. And I love when Jay said this. He said, you know, I'm using my experience as a monk to communicate, like, his beliefs to the world.
Yeah.
Right? And I feel like it's the same thing for me. Like, I don't care if everyone runs in this world.
Yeah.
But I do want people to understand that they're in control of their framework and their mindset.
Absolutely.
And to allow themselves to be free of that. Like, literally go live the life that you want.
Yeah.
And, like, we have one shot at this, so why not make it the best?
Yeah.
And I think if, like, whether that's chasing happiness or growth, like, figure how it's going to motivate you and keep you disciplined.
Absolutely.
And lean into that and find this community and the people that are going to help support you there. Yeah. And if they're not in your area right now, then you need to stop hanging with the people you're hanging with and change what you listen to. And let that be the first step in this journey of chasing happiness or growth or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. And to that, actually, you know, something that a lot of people don't like to face is just because someone's been in your life for a long time and you have history with them, does that mean that they're in the next chapter of your life? And that's unfortunate. And you are absolutely allowed to grieve that.
Yeah.
Because that, I mean, there's history there, right? And I think that's something that people should consider.
Z, that's I think one of the biggest ROIs is removing toxic people out of your life, regardless of the quote unquote time that's been invested. At the end of the day, you can always put your money. The grass is always greener. It's where you water it.
Yeah.
And if the soil has been really stale and it's just dirt now, you're wasting water. Go find actual soil that will grow and blossom into something that is worth fighting for.
Absolutely.
But I think a lot of people water dirt, Z, and expect something to grow, and it's just not going to happen.
Absolutely.
And it's the definition of insanity.
Absolutely, just doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And even to that point, I mean, I will add that it's not just toxicity. Say someone, they're just not doing anything for you, right? Like you have, it's one thing to have like them be part of your close circle and for them to transition into becoming an acquaintance. And what I mean by that, right, is like, say you have a relationship with somebody and you keep seeing it, you have a good relationship with them, but you realize that they might be stuck in a certain situation or, they're not moving the same trajectory as you. Sometimes it's okay to distance yourself from that and see what comes from it.
Spend less time. Don't cut people off.
Yes.
Just spend less time with them.
Yeah, and see what happens.
See what happens.
Yeah, and then actually, that is actually great for realizing whether someone, if it's a more give or take situation.
I love that. I love that. People need to audit their circle and the things that they listen to and hang out, and the people they hang out with. Audit it. See how you feel. Do you feel welcomed in that room? Do you feel like the room is draining you, or do you feel like it's giving you energy?
Yeah.
And every single human has some light that they offer in any room that you enter.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you got to ask yourself, are you with people that are dimming it, or are you with people that are making it brighter?
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that. Just look at it from that standpoint of how you feel internally. Humans are emotional creatures. We base a lot of things on emotion and how we feel.
Yeah.
And people remember how you make them feel.
Absolutely.
And if someone's making you feel like shit, if someone's making you feel like, oh, you're not good enough, well, I guarantee if you stop hanging with those types of people, one, you'll start to get clear in your own head of what you want. And it's not based on what someone else has been telling you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that will be uncomfortable, and that is okay.
Growth is a choice.
Absolutely.
Fight for it.
Oh, man. So with that, we just really want you to take away that, you are in control of your own narrative, and growth is 100% your decision, no one else's. No one can make you do something you don't want to. So with that, I think this is a great place for us to stop.
I agree.
Depending on, what comes of this, maybe we'll have a part 2, who knows? There's many evolutions of this topic.
I love it.
But with that, just again, thank you so much, Matt, for being here. Really appreciate it. This was a great conversation. Just I guess a closing, where can we find you? What do you have going on in your life? This camera, this camera, this camera.
I know, we got cameras here. Thank you so much for having me as a guest. I'm really honored, and when you first told me about this, I was super excited for you. And any friend or family member in my life, like anytime someone's trying to chase something, it really even inspires me more. So I'm super proud of you and hyped to see this episode in addition to all the other ones. But you guys can follow me on social media. I'm pretty much on all the platforms, Matt Choi 6. If you have any questions related to this topic or anything else, feel free to shoot me a message. But other than that, I'm just an honored guest of Zafreen's 2nd episode.
Thanks.
Beyond happy to be here.
All right. Have a good one, everyone.
Peace!